What up, YouTube? We got a Barca fan and a Real Madrid fan in the chat. We live in the United States, and we got the season kicking off this week. The first game of the season is Real Madrid versus Frankfurt for the Super Cup. Famously, Frankfurt embarrassed Barcelona in the quarterfinal of the Europa League last year on their way to win the Europa League. And also, I think even Barca fans can admit this. Real Madrid's Champions League last season was it was some epic shit right there.
It was a surprise. I'll say that it was a surprise. I didn't think they were gonna do it.
But it was epic though.
Eh, it was okay.
Anyway, so the first official game, the preseason is over. First official game, Real Madrid versus Frankfurt. Frankfurt, I just mentioned that they're the UEFA, the Europa League champions, but they just got thrashed by Bayern 6-1 over the weekend. So I don't know. When I'm trying to think about this game, I kind of don't know what to think about Frankfurt. They're sort of a mixed bag. Like last season, they caught fire in the Europa League and they went all the way to win it. And honestly, the performances in the Europa League were very good. But if you look at the Bundesliga table, they finished like in 11th place last year. So it's kind of weird. And especially I feel with these smaller clubs, they're not always as consistent from season to season as some of the bigger teams are. So I really don't know how to analyze this game. I think Madrid is huge favorites, obviously. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the game against Bayern was just a one-off terrible performance by them and they're going to rebound. I don't know. What do you think?
I think these smaller teams in their domestic leagues are. It's hard to be consistent week in week out. But I think when they play the big clubs, especially in these tournaments, they have a certain strategy, which is, sit back, defend, kind of go on the counterattack. And I think that was like super effective against Barca, especially since their defense was pretty shitty last year. It wasn't really, up to par. And I think we can both agree that Barca's team last year was kind of a makeshift team of just random players they could just put together to get enough people on the field and just have subs. Uh, by no means was Barca a great team last year. I think the second half of the season they surprised a lot of people, and I was sad to see them go out against Frankfurt. I thought they were kind of pulling it together, but it is how it is. That's how things go in soccer. Anything can happen. But I do think that when it comes to these big tournaments that these smaller clubs compete in, there's always these kind of Cinderella stories that maybe don't always come to fruition at the end, but they may get further than a lot of people think they will. And I think it's because they just have a certain strategy against these bigger clubs in terms of how they play than what they do in their domestic leagues, because they don't always play big teams week in week out. So there will be times where they'll play a game and they'll actually be a little bit more on the attack, a little bit more dynamic, and it doesn't always work out for them. But when you kind of sit uh, behind the ball, park the bus, so to speak, it's a little different. So I think that was very effective against Barca again in the Europa League last year. And I think I also don't know what to expect from this game. I do think Real Madrid will pull out the win. Real Madrid's youth has really come into their own in the last year. Uh, I mean, I always tell you that I used to love watching Vinny play, tear down the wing, and then just sky his finishes. But he's improved a lot now. He's much better finisher. He's a much better playmaker, and I think something that Real Madrid has going in their favor is that including these young kids kind of coming into their own, it's kind of still the same core team with improvements. They have Alaba, which obviously they had last year. They have Rudiger now. They have young players in the middle. Rodrigo's not as bad as he used to be. You have play, and the change of Valverde going onto the right wing, just because there's really no other options. It really made a difference for Real Madrid, and I think that's one of the key reasons they actually won the Champions League last year, is because one of their biggest struggles was they had Vinny coming down the wing on the left, and then it was kind of their only option. and then obviously Benzema in the middle, but there was no one really on the right wing. But with Valverde, you have a player, a workhorse who's willing to come back and defend, creative on the ball, has great vision. So I do think Real Madrid probably comes out on top, but you never know with these small clubs. They can always come up with these surprises that no one expects.
I think for Frankfurt last season, I think they could find themselves in one. Well, they found themselves in the situation kind of where your domestic league isn't going so great, but
Right.
you're in the round of 16 or something like that.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
you're just like, fuck it, we're gonna put all of our eggs in the European League basket,
Yeah, for sure.
and then they just kind of went all in on that and neglected a little bit of the Bundesliga possibly. But
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, not to, discredit anything, even though, it should be. But in two of Real Madrid's Champions League wins when they won the three in a row, they were pretty much out of La Liga by the time the knockout stages came into the Champions League. So obviously, at this point, who cares about the league? Let's just, go all in on Champions League, and they put it together. Um, I think they had a better team back there, but they're coming into their own, like I said. So we'll see how it goes.
yeah, it's funny, like teams that aren't the best team in their domestic league can still win these
Yeah,
cups, especially when the knockout format. It's more about like consistency over the long term versus who can win in the high pressure moment, which is the debate we always have about
yeah.
Ronaldo and Messi, but we won't talk about that. But real quick, back to the game. I'm looking at Frankfurt, the lineup they started with against Bayern Munich, where they lost 6-1. It's pretty much the same core of players that won the Europa League. That's the starting 11 for the final. The big miss, I'm not going to pretend to be super knowledgeable about Frankfurt, but what I've heard and what I've seen is that their center back retired kind of shockingly, their main center back Hinteregger over the summer. So that was definitely probably a big miss for them against Bayern, and probably something that Madrid should definitely look to exploit. But in terms of like how is Madrid going to line up, I think he's going to put the starting 11 that won the final in the Champions League. I think that's his most trusted group. So we're going to have Courtois, and then the same back four as usual with Mendy, Militao, Alaba, and Carvajal.
You don't think he
Casemiro.
puts Rudiger in there instead of Militao?
I think for this, because there's a cup on the line, he's just going to go with his trusted formula that won him the Champions League last year. And honestly, I can't really blame him for that. I personally think that for this season, he really needs to start giving the younger players more starting time and more responsibility. But for the first game of the first official game of the season, and there's a title on the line, honestly, I'm not going to be one of those dudes that's criticizing Ancelotti for doing that. I mean, you need to get the dub. There's no question.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. I do want to, bring up quickly your point about Hinteregger. I mean, I also don't know much about Frankfurt. Not too many players of note, but I will say Hinteregger, he did stop Barca a lot in the Europa
Yeah,
League
he's a
last year.
beast. He's a
Yeah, he
beast.
was he was really good, and Barca's attack was a much weaker attack than they are now, and so him being there really helped him out a lot. And then yeah, having to adjust to a loss like that so quickly is tough. Um, but back into the Madrid lineup, it's interesting because it seems like you guys have now more options than you did last year, and that's even winning the Champions League. So I would feel pretty confident going into it if I was Madrid, just because not only do you have the same core group of players, actually pretty much have the same starting 11. Um, but they also they have the other young players that are coming in and doing well. Kamavinga is doing great. Rodrigo's improving. Brought this new kid in. What's his name?
Chouameni,
Yeah, who apparently they spent a lot on him, right?
80 mil.
80 mil. That's no small buy. And sometimes those players work out, sometimes they don't, but obviously they have hope for him to be part of that team in the future. So maybe we get to see him come in 70th minute, 80th minute, maybe see what he can do on the field.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be the players that made a name for themselves last year in the Champions League, like you mentioned, Camavinga,
Yeah.
Rodrigo. They're gonna get their minutes at the end. Also, I'm pretty sure Hazard is gonna play in the last 20 to 15 minutes. He's been looking
Why?
he's been looking pretty decent in the preseason, and Real Madrid is billing him up to be like the big signing of the summer because he said that he's
The
gonna.
big signing of the summer that they signed 3 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not getting my hopes up. Trust, I'm not getting my hopes up. But I think it's gonna be the same 11 that started the Champions League final. And honestly, if you're just trying to get a result, I don't think we play our most like attractive and high paced game with that starting 11. But I think that's what he's going to go with.